Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello, and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that hopefully matters to you. Today, we are honored to announce we have been given the first ever exclusive interview for the new film, Ticketyboo, A Secret in Plain Sight, the new dementia documentary that will be released around Christmas of this year. Welcome, Renée Brack, the writer, director, and co-producer of the Alzheimer's documentary, Ticketyboo, A Secret in Plain Sight, as well as Mr. Tim England, a leading dementia expert from Australia, who was also previously a guest on All Home Care Matters. We just want to welcome you both very much to the show and say thank you for being here.
And thank you very much too.
And thank you again, Lance, for the opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. So Renée, let's start with you. Tell us the who, what, where, and why of Ticketyboo.
This photo that you can see here is me with my dad in 1964 at Randwick Racecourse, which is quite famous in Australia. And it's become a metaphor and a motivator for making this film, because I'm trying to see the world through his eyes, because they're his mafia glasses perched on my face. And my dad was diagnosed in 2006 with Alzheimer's, and it was a huge shock to me and the family. But then it made sense, because I long lensed back about 13 years to 1993, and I saw very specific clues that I missed. And he died very quickly when he went into the nursing home, and that was also a shock. So I was dealing with grief and regret, and it was getting worse. So I went to a counsellor and thought, why am I getting worse about this? And she said, well, maybe there is a lot of unresolved stuff there. And I believe that I'm the poster child for doing dementia badly. And there are fabulously noble films out there and viral videos about people who are compassionate and kind and can interact. And I stood back, I leaned back and let Alzheimer's basically take the relationship with my dad. And I got angry, I blamed him, what's going on? This was before diagnosis. And so I thought, what I need to do is I need to take some actions. So he was an artist, and he was a realist artist who worked in oils. And as Alzheimer's took hold, he kept painting and then drawing right up until he died. But you can chart the change in his mind and the way he saw the world with his artworks. And the one that's just behind me on this side was his final work of art. And he loved holding hands to ground him in the same reality as me. And Alzheimer's crippled up his limbs and took his voice. So he used the back of his hand to push that sketch towards me when he wanted me to hold his hand. And it was his final work of art.
Wow.
So I thought, you know what? I would love to use the skills that I've got with media and film to normalize all the kind of ugly emotions that I had around dementia and my ignorance, and go on a journey to transform it. And of course, that's when I came across Tim England, Dementia Champion, and started to learn that what I was going through was normal. And so I'm starting to forgive myself, and the process of the documentary is learning how to interact in a compassionate, meaningful way and stay connected to people we love.
Yeah. Tim, let me ask you, when you first got that phone call from Renée, what were your initial recommendations and thoughts about her circumstances? And did you ever think you would end up being a part of this film?
Well, okay. Yes, I actually did feel I was going to be part of this when I first spoke with Renée on the phone, and later on we did a Zoom call. And I just picked up as you seem right here, the genuineness behind the voice and the passion. Like, I've been asked to get involved with other projects over the years by many people, and a lot of times there's always been a certain agenda or focus, which I looked at and went, no, I'm not really into that. It's not the right thing. But when I met Renée first on the phone, and then later on, it's like there's a click, there's a connection. She is tapping into that raw emotion that everyone unfortunately experiences when they go through this. And she was very open, very honest, and very blunt, as you just said, she believes she's the poster child of doing it wrong, which that may be true from your viewpoint. My viewpoint is you're the poster child of how a lot of people do it. And by by you revealing what you have gone through and exposing the rawness of it. And when you interviewed me that particular day, we saw the rawness of it come out on both of our sides. It's like, yeah, I have to be part of this project. I've got to be part of it, because even if we can change the viewpoint or the attitude of one person of what they're going through, then we've done our job.
Yeah. Well, and that takes me back to Ticketyboo, Renée. It's going to be used as a tool of social impact. What does that tool look like, and what is the impact you're hoping for with the movie?
It's a wonderful question, and thank you, because the learning journey that I'm on is so incredible, and I never would have expected it, because I wanted to make a little film using my dad's art, maybe 30 minutes, and I connected with a brilliant producer called Kristen Hodges, and she went, oh no, let's go big, we'll make it a feature. And I thought, really? Is there enough story there to make it a feature? And so we worked, and this was in 2017. And the Dementia Australia is the leading organisation, the big national one here in Australia, that offers support and a lot of resources to people. And they had a survey come out that announced that dementia-related symptoms and so on are the second leading cause of death in Australia of all Australians. And in that year, the leading cause of death in Australian women. And I'm an Australian woman. So that was very sobering and disturbing. And so I started putting the documentary together. And then there's another organisation called Documentary Australia Foundation, DAF, that offer tax breaks if people invest or fund documentary films. And they need to have impact. They need to have social impact. So I thought, oh, what's this? And started researching. And then I thought, this is it. This is how it becomes bigger than me and beyond me, and becomes a tool for other people to watch, hopefully relate to different aspects of it. And then to be able to put it into festivals and have it go around the world. That's the plan for 2022. And also have free screenings and travel it around what I call the 3 Rs, which I'm hoping will, of course, extend beyond Australian borders, of going rural, regional, remote. And so then what we can do is get people to fill out a short survey before the film about what they think, know and feel about dementia, see the film, fill out the second survey, which will then be able to give us data where we can see how the documentary as a tool has changed people in any way. And so I then want to take that data and turn it into a PhD and look at social impact films and what they can do to help change the world.
That's fantastic. I know when I was in college, we had to watch certain films on certain illnesses and read books on certain illnesses as well. And one of them was a book about a wife who had to care for her husband early in the 80s when he was first diagnosed with dementia. But in the 80s, they just called it senility. They didn't think it was dementia. And this woman took that experience, turned it into a book, and then led a crusade that just was tremendous. And I could see a lot of that similarity here with Ticketyboo, where it really will be a tool for impact and social change. To, like Tim and I have talked about previously, there needs to be a more awareness to what this illness is, how families can become better educated. And I'm sure you can appreciate this, Renee. When you first set out on this path, I'm sure you've discovered and learned more about dementia while creating the film than you knew before the film. Would you say that's about right?
I'm astounded at how ignorant I was when my dad was alive, and how much that I have learned now. And I'm really looking forward to sharing that with people, because as my dad, he retired from work, and I thought he wanted to retire, but he was making mistakes, because he did beautiful restorative architectural work with heritage buildings and ornate ceilings and so on. And he handmade the molds, which is a dying trade in Australia. And they were a few millimeters off, which is extremely expensive. Right. So they've got to be redone. So he came home, he said he wanted to retire, but at this stage too, he was concealing the secret. He knew something was wrong. And he came home and laid on the couch with 2 cats on his lap for 2 years. And I let him do it, because I thought, you deserve this. You've worked hard in your life. But it wasn't the right thing to do. I should have engaged him more. And as he lost his voice, I would just pat him and just say, oh, that's all right. No. I understand. So instead of engaging with it, I was pacifying him. And so I missed a lot of opportunities until one day, he'd come out to the fridge for breakfast, and he announced he had invented it, with great applause and flourishes everywhere. And I was about to correct him, because that's what I normally did. And I decided just to do something different, because I was exhausted by the changes. So I went up and went, oh, it's wonderful. I like that, it's got a hinge here or there, so the door can open left or right. The freezer on the bottom, really smart, because that's good for heavy items, easier to lift. And the light inside, perfect for midnight snacking. And he was chuffed, and he toddled out into the garden, and I shed a few tears of relief, because it was an epiphany. That's when I knew, God, I've been doing this all wrong. It's kind of cruel to keep dragging him back, and selfish to keep dragging him back into my reality. I should go join him in his. And that was a turning point. And also, I still get emotional now thinking about it, because I should have done it a lot earlier, but I didn't know. And that's what I'm hoping the film will help people understand, because there are so many things we can do on an interactive level that keeps us connected to people we love with dementia. And I found out by time traveling, that's what I nicknamed it, by time traveling with him, I got to know my dad as a young man.
What was that like, Renee?
Well,
a lot of us don't get that opportunity.
Well, Mum was not his first love.
Oh boy.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
Yeah, and but she was his greatest love, and I have put this in the documentary as well. And she's quite comfortable with it, of course, now, because they were married for a very long time. But yeah, to find out about how much he loved rock and roll in the 1950s and hear what was important to him. And of course, that excuse me, the title of the film comes into play, because as the undetected by me symptoms of dementia and Alzheimer's were coming into play, I'd ask him, how are you? And he'd just keep repeating on tickety-boo, on tickety-boo. And the last time he heard that word was when he was around 6 years old, and his own father had come back from World War II. And it's a UK expression from the Air Force that means I'm A-OK. And he wasn't A-OK. Yeah.
Tim, what do you recommend for families who are going to see this documentary or listening to this interview or watching it, and they're kind of in the situation Renee was at the very beginning? What's the advice you give them when they're first starting off on this journey, caring for a family member? And Renee mentioned a couple of things, try to stay in their reality, try not to correct them. But aside from that, families just don't know what to do.
No, you're correct that families don't know what to do. And one of the many first things, and there's no one first thing, but there's a cluster of things. And Renee and I have spoken about this from time to time. It's you have to start to accept and realize you're not alone. You're not an island. You're not out there by yourself. And it's easy for me to say that, and for you to say that, and for Renee now to understand that. But at the time, Renee would have had no idea, and everyone else I deal with at first have no idea. It's just like, is this what it is? Is this me? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Is my dad I'm sure my dad's doing this on purpose, just to annoy me. There's all of those kind of things come through. Why does my husband put the iron in the fridge? He's driving me insane. Well, to him, it's logical. There's a reason behind it. There's a reason behind every behavior. There's a reason behind every action. It's what we've got to do is be open-minded and go, stop and relax in our mind. Go, okay, you've got to start to understand. It takes a while for people to get this. It's not them doing this thing. It's the underpinning disease or pathology or whatever you want to call it, which is causing this to happen. So it's not them. They're not trying to give you a hard time. They're actually experiencing a hard time. Yeah. And once people start to understand that and grasp that and just start to accept that they're experiencing a hard time, it's like Renee said with that epiphany you had with the whole fridge. Suddenly the light globe goes on. I go, and when I'm with a family and I get that light globe moment, then now I can take you on the journey better. Yeah. But everyone's going to pick that light globe moment at their own time. Some, fortunately, get it early. Some, unfortunately, get it much later. Okay. And myself and my colleagues, we can only guide and help and support up to a certain point. But once that light globe moment happens, then it opens up and we can start doing more things to have that connectivity, to get that connection back with that person. And as Renee was saying before, it's great for us to say into their own reality. I've got to give them examples of that. Mm-hmm. And an example I use quite commonly, and not to bring children into it, but it's probably the best way, is if you're a grandparent or a parent and you've got your little 5-year-old grandchild comes racing home and they've got a bit of artwork from school, and we all know what it looks like. It's finger painting all over the paper and it's just squiggles and lines and a mess, okay? But to them, you ask them, "Hi, Johnny, what is that?" And they go, "Oh, this is a kangaroo on the back of a rocket ship flying to Pluto." Because that's their reality. Yeah. Now, then we've got to make that choice. Do we say, "No, Johnny, it's not. It's red paint and blue paint on a black background. It's not what you're saying it is," and ruin their reality? Right. Or do we enter their reality and go, "Wow, Johnny, that looks great. You did a great job with that rocket ship and with the flame coming at the back," and they get excited. Okay, so you're supporting them. The challenge we have in this area of dementia is a lot of people and naturally will approach it from a point of view going, "Oh, I can't do that because I'm lying to them. Right. I'm telling them a mistruth." You're not lying to them. You're entering their universe. Okay. If that individual thinks the sky is yellow, guess what? The sky is yellow. Okay. Because as Renee found out the hard way, trying to correct, trying to convince them that it's blue, you end up having a fight. Yeah. No one wins. Anxiety goes up and everyone gets angry with each other. So you have to, and it's hard for us as adult human beings to go, "Stop. No, our first thing is to go and correct." Okay. Because we think we're doing the right thing, but actually not doing the right thing. We need to just stop, take that internal spiritual breath, and then engage. Yeah. And that's the best advice I try to give anybody at the first level of diagnosis. To a lot of people, it's over their head. They don't quite get it. I understand that. But with time, and I can see Renee's nodding a lot. You would have loved to have met me 20 years ago with all of this and give you some advice. But we only know this through trial and error and education and awareness as we talk more about this particular subject.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why Ticketyboo is going to be such an impactful way to help families dealing with this, because I say all the time, Renée, it's easy for professionals to give you advice and tell you what to do. But I think there's some credibility when it's coming from somebody who's also lived it, and not all professionals have been through it. They're only coming from the academic side, which is one reason I think Tim is so profoundly helpful, because he's talking in a way that average people can understand, and you're sharing your story through your experiences that you have lived through. And, I'm curious, how did you find it emotionally to sit down and prepare this film, knowing the whole history you had, leading up to that moment when you finally said, okay, we're making this film? Were there times you must have had times of struggle, I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, very much so, because the healing process with the grief counsellor was happening at the same time. And because Australia in March, possibly, there are a lot of areas in the US that might have been similar. March 2020, I remember it was a Tuesday, the 22nd of March, we were all told to go home, and we were in our first lockdown.
Yeah.
And that's when we started fundraising, and we needed to get into nursing homes, and they were the first to say, no one's coming in.
Yep.
So it was like, wow. And then I had planned 2 months of pre-production, and one of the other producers, Christina Foster, she said, I think we should shoot now. We've got enough money. We should shoot now. So then pre-production went to 2 weeks,
wow.
Which was disturbing for me, because I still hadn't gone through all the counselling to get to the other side. And I needed to be able to shoot that as well. So I was managing my emotions around it. Yes, I spent many times literally crying into the keyboard, because it was so hard to admit certain things. And I was doing the research at the same time, this is not great for drama. You need to have more planning. But for documentary, it's quite good, because it's a living journey. And as I started doing research into Alzheimer's, which I should have done years ago when my dad was alive, but I had no clue, I found out at the very core of everything, it's fear and discrimination. And because we're not friends with dementia, that's why we struggle with it, because like leprosy from centuries ago, we push it away.
Yeah.
And so when I had my second epiphany, which is a very important point in the documentary for Act 2, is when I realised it wasn't Alzheimer's that destroyed my relationship with my father. It was my own fear and discrimination around the disease. And that was deeply distressing to me. And we were shooting last year when that hit me. And so then that took the journey into, I thought, well, how can I address this? Because with the counsellor, what the 2 actions I'm taking is, well, Dad was too shy to exhibit his art. I'll do a posthumous art exhibition with all his work. In COVID lockdown, and we had as full a house as we could have, which went really well. And I'm a writer, and I didn't have a gravestone because the family wanted him cremated.
Okay.
And so I eventually get to write an epitaph, and I've got a living memorial of his favourite colour, which are blue forget-me-nots. And that's a very significant point in the film as well. But the middle part is how do I address this fear and discrimination? I thought, I'm going to go get tested. And so I started doing interviews, because I've got a history as a journalist and reporter. And pretty much everyone's going, no, you will discriminate. What are you doing? This is crazy. You mightn't be able to get insurance. You mightn't be able to do this.
Yeah.
And because of my personality, where I get very involved in things. Alice was lucky. She had one rabbit hole to go down. I went down heaps of them. And, of course, doing a lot of tests, standard and
let's just clarify real quick, though, Renée, because just so people watching and listening know what you're talking about. You decided to go get tested for what?
I wanted to just see if I had, first of all, cognitive decline, And then I thought, oh, there's tau proteins and different things that can build up in the brain. I'll have this test. I'll have that test. I had a barrage of tests. And then I had a very significant test, which was more revealing about genes, not genes, but, you know, the GENES genes, which I probably will stop talking about that here because that's also an important part of the film. But yeah, do you want to know? Do you not want to know?
Right.
What does it mean if you know? Some people don't, some people do. And of course, then that sets me on another part of the journey, which is there any decent care out there? What if I have to go into care? Right. Let's have a think about that. What kind of person could I be with if I developed a form of dementia? And where could I go? So I go on a quest. And that's quite heartwarming as well.
What was the reaction to people who just knew you as a friend or, you know, family members when you decided, because a lot of family members have loved ones who get some illness, some disease, and, you know, they go through the grief process and they may research it a little bit. And then that's kind of where it's left. You, on the other hand, you're on a crusade with Mr. Tim England here to raise awareness of this illness or this disease and help educate the public, educate families. When Tim and I spoke last time when he was on, he was just sharing that situation of the man at the Sydney mall who, you know, the clerk just didn't have the awareness or the understanding. And then the gentleman was found dead in the mall stairway a few days later. You know, you're on a social impact movement here. And I give you such credibility and kudos to take this on because it's needed. It's desperately needed. As we all know, what was that like when you're going from your career and switching gears, probably mid-career, to now creating this important film?
I don't know what's going to happen. I've been, until your reaction, Lance, to the whole film and you seeing the reel, I've been very scared that when the film comes out, people will hate me and I will get trolled because of the way I didn't handle my dad's dementia. I'm nervous about that because all the other material I've seen that's out there is noble and people are doing it well. And I'm nervous a little bit about what colleagues might think because I also work in education part-time. So I nurture emerging filmmakers to make impact films.
Sure.
If I forget something, you know, will colleagues think of me differently because my dad had alzheimers and could I be developing it? As a middle-aged woman living in Australia, and we also have the highest homelessness rate, and a lot of that is dementia related. I'm a little scared for my future in some ways, but so I don't know what to expect.
The friends and colleagues that you've shared this with, what has their feedback been so far? Because I can say, and we're going to have a link to the reel on our website and on the show notes and things for this interview. When Tim shared it with me maybe a couple of months ago, I just said, this is fantastic. You know, I didn't realize at the time it wasn't fully released yet. And I just immediately could tell this is going to help people. And if I could just say, and Tim, you know, feel free to correct me. I don't think anybody should judge you or will judge you based on how you responded to your dad, because everything you did, and we tell this to families that we provide care to, you're doing it out of a place of love and respect. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way, but you're not doing something in a harmful or in a way that wouldn't honor them. You're doing what you thought in your heart of hearts was right at the time. And you can't judge that, you know, just like, you know, Tim used the child painting the picture. I'll use the child playing soccer. You know, you tell them, go out there, score some goals, do your very best. Well, if they don't score a goal, that's okay. As long as they did their very best, they did the best they could do. That doesn't mean that they failed at playing soccer, you know? So you didn't fail as a daughter, in my opinion, from what you've been sharing. I just think you can't be expected to know something that you don't know. I don't know if that...
If I can just jump in there,
yeah, please do.
if you don't mind, what Renée was saying about your fear, and I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But I see a different future. Okay, from the colleagues I've shared the reel with, and some of them work in the field, some of them are family caregivers and so forth. I've had nothing but applause. Nothing but applause. They believe you're doing a fantastic thing. And these are people who've actually gone through what you've gone through, where they've struggled, and some of them have actually got back to me and said, "Thank God someone's doing it this particular way, open and honest."
Right.
Yeah, warts and all, because
it's real.
It's real.
Yeah.
Okay, it's real. So I understand a little bit of fear. Just lighten up yourself a bit, Renée. You're in a right place. It's going to be fabulous. It really is.
Have you shared the reel, Renée, with any of your friends or colleagues?
I have, and only about like 3 friends, and one of them, she said to me, "The music's too loud. You've got to mix it down lower." But yeah, it's been positive. But because they're friends, really, can I trust them because they do love me?
Yeah.
And so so it's been. It's not that I value their feedback less, but this is what Tim just said is the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful to hear that. So,
I'm just telling you the truth.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's your overall hope for the film, Renée?
I'm really excited for it to have a world premiere somewhere. The dream is Toronto Film Festival, but also in the US. And then I want it to go around the world. And I'm really looking forward to just reading comments. If this makes, as Tim had said earlier too, a difference on an individual level where somebody just feels by the time the film ends is a little bit more comfortable being around dementia, like they can say, "How are you going?" Or if someone looks a little lost, they feel like they could, treat it as something that's not to be shunned. And if people start putting stories like that in little comments, that will make my day. Just to give you an example of how the wonderful frame of mind I was into just before this interview, because we have a time difference of about 14 hours. So I woke up this morning to put on a bit of makeup and get ready. And I just released the results to some of my students who are in the documentary unit. And there's one guy who's got he deals with a certain condition, and he got an HD. And early morning, he's just sent me a message just saying, "I've struggled all through school, Renée." And to have this, recognition, because I often feel misunderstood, and to have somebody get that about me. And so I was getting all emotional, but in a good way. And so if I can have that effect on an individual and just help them a little bit, which means the quality of life for people with dementia and their carers is improved, then my work is done. And so that's why, rather than just show the film in Australia on Australian television, that international film festival circuit is where I'm aiming, because it's a global problem.
Yeah. I was amazed to learn that it was the leading cause of women in Australia. Is that, I don't believe that is true of any other country, is it?
No, it's not. No. It just to give you some background on that, it is uniquely Australian. There's been a lot of research into why. We don't know why. Seriously, there's some thought that it could be the fact that women live longer than men generally in Australia. That's a factor, but it's not the actual cause. We just don't know. Okay, there's also you've also got the effect where other ailments like cancers, breast cancer, so forth, are getting more treatable. So the death rate of some of those ailments are being reduced over time. So things like dementia, which have a limited response to treatment, is increasing. So that's also a factor, but it is very much uniquely Australian. And I've spoken with many a leading researcher here in Australia, and they're still scratching their head to understand why. But it is a reality. And when we compare it to, and this is a bit of a comparison with the United States, the States and Australia have very similar background regarding the scope of dementia. Okay, allowing for different population sizes. Like we've got 25 million, you've got 330 million, but the percentage in the populations are still about the same. About 1.8% of your population have a level of dementia. And that's kind of universal in most Western countries. We believe it's higher in underdeveloped countries because of the healthcare systems, and we haven't got those records. And again, we have similarities where you'd have certain pockets in the United States, like probably Florida or Texas or maybe Southern California, where you get a much higher retirement rate of people. So the percentage is going to be higher there compared to other areas in the United States. And we've got the same thing here in Australia. Where I live, in a part of Sydney known as the North Shore, which is the northern part of the harbour, instead of we having a national average about 1.8% of our population, it's almost double that at 3%, because we've got to have a much higher level of elderly individuals. So there's a lot of similarities, but there's also some very unique differences where it is the second leading cause of death in Australia right now. And the predictions are probably by, unfortunately, 2030, 2027, it will be the leading cause of death in Australia, because other elements like cardiovascular diseases and deaths for them is being reduced due to the advancement of medical treatment. That's not going to happen with this particular area. So it's just going to continue to grow. Throw on top of that, you've got the same situation we've got with the baby boomers moving into that retirement area. That's going to increase the numbers. The third thing is we're actually getting better at diagnosing. We're getting much better at it. And a classic example is the unfortunate tragic story of Robin Williams, how he was misdiagnosed with Parkinson's and depression, whereas actually Lewy body dementia, which they discovered post-mortem, and the reports are that up to 40% of his brain matter was impacted by Lewy body. And it was actually one of the worst cases that the neuroscientists had ever dealt with. So, we're getting better at diagnosing. So all of that is going to just keep increasing this impact. So we need to talk about it more. We need to get it into the public sphere more, for no other reason to start to destigmatize it for the individual and for the caregivers like Renée, because they feel stigmatized because they don't know what's going on and they don't know how they're going to get, as you were saying, Renée, just you fear you might get trolled. You're concerned that people are going to stigmatize you because of what you did or didn't do. But I don't think that's going to be the case as the awareness level grows.
Right. And I think too, Renée, with this film and families who are going through what you have gone through, they will be able to relate to that, because, if you line up 10 families, I think all 10 of them would say, I didn't do this right, or I didn't do that right, because it's so unpredictable. You don't know. One minute, they may enjoy their salad. The next day they may not like it, and then they feel like a failure. I couldn't get them to eat. Well, they didn't like the salad that day, or, whatever the example is, like you said, you just roll with it. You go into their reality and you do the very best you can from a place of love and, compassion. You can't fault anybody for that. It's not a case of neglect or a dereliction of your duty as, his daughter or his caregiver. And then you took your experience of trying to help your dad and turned it into this beautiful piece of art that is hopefully going to impact the world, when it goes through all these, movie and film circuits, and, you have all these appearances that talk about it, and, you might turn it into a series of books for caregivers,
That is really interesting. One of the things I thought would be lovely to do is a bit of a picture book with Dad's art from the beginning right through to the end, because when we did have the exhibition, like I've never put on an art exhibition, I have a clue. And so this wonderful curator, like I didn't really know what art curators do, but she came over to my place and we sat around and she got me to talk about things. And so it was more like a psych session. And so then she said, I think what we should do is use handwriting with chalk rather than the very formal art exhibition description. This is what this painting is and this is when it was done. And we'll group it all like a mind map, and there'll be, you know, this will be pre-diagnosis, this will be after diagnosis. And I was like, wow, now it makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe I could do a book, the Ticketyboo book, and then use that handwriting again, just so people, and some of my thoughts, you know, like one of the things that after diagnosis that we put in chalk for the art exhibition is I recalled, because of Saha's prompting, that I used to say to Dad, this is a good painting. And then I started to say, it's good that you're painting.
Yeah.
And just those little subtle shifts. And we put that into the exhibition just as little signals.
Well, and I know you had shared some some pieces of his art that he had painted, and they're tremendous. They're beautiful pieces of art. We'll include them in the film. I mean, that was just exquisite. Did he have ever an idea of selling art as a career, or no?
He was very shy. He wanted to, but he was extremely shy. And one of the things that I charted was he did a lot of still life in oils that's extremely precise and detailed. And then as Alzheimer's took hold, he moved more into watercolors with a lot of movement. And there's one in particular that breaks my heart a little bit, but it's the brush fire one, where there's two men putting out a brush fire with brush, the futility of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very dark. And one of the firefighters is dressed in a singlet and shorts. It's not appropriate. He's ill prepared.
Yeah. And
that has become this incredible metaphor for me to understand what might have been happening in his mind, because that was in the 90s, you know, and he was diagnosed in 2006. So this was well before that.
Did you live with your father, Renee, at the end?
No, my mum took him out of Sydney after diagnosis back to where she grew up, because she had a beautiful rural upbringing down the south coast of Australia. And he was able to roam and wander there. She hated that he did that. But I used to sort of play this stealth game where she'd say, he's gone again. And so then I would nick out and then hide behind trees, playing this weird hide and seek, because he got very annoyed if people were following him, and it added to his paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, I want to keep an eye on you, but I don't want to upset you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to play hide and seek again with my older dad.
Wow. Did your dad have siblings?
Yeah, he did. And one of them, I only just discovered, died about a month ago of dementia-related conditions, because we don't know much about Dad's family.
Okay.
So now I'm just becoming aware of potentially what could be an environmental reason for the condition to manifest, or there could be something more, and wondering about my own genetic makeup. Yeah.
Tim, what do you see as one of the biggest obstacles for families when they're in situations caring for their loved ones with the dementia? There's so many. For us, we always hear that, you know, they don't want to put their loved one in a facility. They want to keep them in their home because they at least they have a sense of security there.
Yeah.
But they can't leave them alone. And if they don't have the means, they can't hire professional caregivers to come in.
Yeah.
You know, families are in an impossible situation.
Yeah, I think good question. There are a lot of barriers. I think one of the biggest ones is that lack of awareness of their social circle, of their friends and families and so forth. And I want to use my location as an example. I live in an area where there's quite a few elderly individuals, and people here know what I do for a career and so forth. And there is one particular lady in the street who has a couple of little challenges, but the whole street knows it. So the whole street is like that. That little community just keeps a watch out. They're not checking up or following or controlling, but they're aware that this lady has some issues, and the husband's doing his very, very best. So everyone's just aware. So if they see her taking out the rubbish, or the trash, as you guys call it, and she's doing something a bit kind of unusual, they will just talk with her because they know she's trying to do her very best to put the garbage into the bin and not being able to do it.
Right.
So they don't come and correct her. They just chat with her and talk with her because they understand that she has some ailments. Okay. And that's one thing that I really stress. If we can help when someone has got a diagnosis, the family, to meet the family, get them to start understanding going on, and get their permission to educate their local community. Yeah. Okay. Like if, let's say for Renee, if Thomas, your dad, would like to go to a local coffee shop, with the family's permission, we'll go to that coffee shop and just try to educate the staff there. As in, when Thomas comes in and for a coffee, that you may want to just be aware that he's going to be a little bit unusual. You may not give him so many choices. You say, "Oh, Thomas, would you like a normal cup of coffee? I'll make your coffee right now," and make life easier for them. So I see one of the big barriers. The local awareness is so poor that the family just feel so remote and so scared that I don't know what to do. I can't leave him alone. I was saying one to Renee the other day, when one of the biggest fears that a lot of carers have when they go, let's say they go out shopping in the local shopping mall with their partner who may have dementia, and as the carer, they want to go to a bathroom, but they can't take their loved one with them because it's a different bathroom. What do I do with them? Okay, I have to sit them outside in a chair. Will they be in that chair when I come back? It's those little things that the carers feel, I can't leave them alone in case something happens. So it just impacts on their lives. If the awareness in that shopping centre was a bit higher, that individual can quite comfortably go, I've got to go to the bathroom. I know this person's going to be safe in this environment because people around here have a level of understanding. Okay, so I just see that as the single biggest barrier, is that lack of public awareness. There's a lack of awareness on the medical side, but on that public side, that's crucial. We need, if we can raise that just a small percentage, it will have a massive positive impact for the family caregivers to be able to relax a little bit more.
Renee, when you were helping the care for your dad, did you run into situations like that where you would take him to the store with you, or take him out to a restaurant and didn't know how to respond, or how did you handle your situation?
Before diagnosis, I remember my mum worked, and she loved working, and she took Dad to a dinner function at a very flash hotel in the middle of Sydney, overlooking the harbour and the Opera House, and he went to the bathroom and vanished.
Oh, wow.
And so that's when she thought, I can't take him out as much because it is a full-time job to manage. And so when I would take him, I took him to an art show. This friend of mine was having an art exhibition. I thought, oh no, he'll love this. And so it required Mum to drop him to me because he wasn't confident driving anymore, and meet me somewhere. And then I took him with me, and he clung to my elbow like a child, which wasn't bothersome to me. But because I was still struggling to understand it, and I hadn't reached out to any organisations, I was, look at this, and I'm going to go and get you a drink. And as soon as I would move away, he would stand there and he would be wringing his hands and be quite distressed. And so it was that wasn't so much difficult for me, but it was distressing for me because he used to be fun. And that's what I was thinking, why are you doing this? Why are you being like this? Before diagnosis, of course.
Where was it you went for the diagnosis, or what kind of test did he have done?
Well, this is also a big part of a big turning point for the film, because in 2006, he went to the local shopping centre and took off and went to the dentist. And then just left and didn't know where the car was, and he vanished for over 16 hours.
Wow.
Just to give you a bit of and they lived on the North Shore where Tim lives around Allambie. And he walked all through a very, very remote rural parkland all the way to Barrenjoey, which is a very flash part of town, Palm Beach, where all the rich filmy people live. And there's a lighthouse right on the point. And he got to the cliff and stopped. And he'd been, and so he'd been gone for 16 hours. All the toenails in his shoes had lifted off. He'd taken his wallet, thrown all the money away, and then picked up leaves and thought that was money and put that in his wallet. And he couldn't remember anything except the home phone number where he lived with Mum.
Wow.
And he had to go into hospital. He was dehydrated, and then they did the series of tests, and the diagnosis was very advanced Alzheimer's. And so I had no clue. It didn't even occur to me it could be that.
Did your mom have any inkling to it, living with him, or?
She didn't say so. She didn't say anything, but also too, I come from a very rural stock, very stoic country people. Yeah. And so you just get on with things and manage,
get on with it.
And you avoid certain things, and you play things down. You know, if someone's kind of misbehaving a little bit, you just try and turn away a little bit. And it's done, again, from the very best of intentions, and it's done out of respect.
Sure.
But it doesn't help to turn away. That's the thing.
What are you hoping that when this film gets released, and I understand you guys are still getting the funding put together, is that correct? And you have it hosted on the DAF, the Documentary Australia Foundation. There's a link there with the Ticketyboo film, with the reel. And when families watch this, do they have a way of reaching out to either you or Tim to the film to share stories or ask questions, or?
They will have, because the lovely two-part thing, or two-stage process of making an impact film, a documentary, is we're in, just to give you a bit of a timeline too, we're in post-production now. The film will be finished by Christmas.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yes. And so that's when we start getting the impact campaign together. And that's going to involve a booklet, some how-to, an app, and also mainly it's the free screenings to be able to go around and show it to people and do it at a grassroots level while the film is out there doing the International Film Festival circuit and getting around the world. And so part of the impact package will be a website that will have these resources as well. And I'm hoping that some people might even want to get a copy of the film and screen it in their local area. And what I would be asking in return for that is, could we please see how much data we can generate about the before and after the film? Because that is of immense value to not only Australia, but to be able to hopefully impact policy at a government level. And also impact community about resources that are available. And I'd really like to impact funding pathways as well, because living in a capitalist world, there are providers who, some are more scrupulous than others, and some are getting more money than others, and some do have shareholders and they need to prioritise, I guess, profits for them. But I would love to just be able to impact some of that funding pathway so that the quality of life of people that are in dementia care is improved.
Absolutely. When the film is released, though, you guys will be coming back to share the news with us, correct?
Oh, I'd love to, Lance. I'd love to come back, because we'll have the real trailer as well, because what you've got is the reel to assist with fundraising, because, as I said, we've got all the money to finish the film, but we do need to fund the impact campaign. And I never get sick of pitching. I find it quite exciting, because some people get pitch fatigue, but I just feel as I start getting better at it, and people can connect and see, why you would put money into something like this. I really enjoy the process because it's not money for me. I'm not making the money out of it. But if there's a way to help the film get out, that's what it's about. So an impact campaign is really like an extension of the distribution of a film.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have it on our website, and we'll have it on all of our platforms. And I just cannot thank you both enough for taking the time to speak with us today. And Tim, it's good to see you again, my friend. And Renee, I just think you've done such a wonderful, wonderful thing. I truly do. And hopefully you'll be following the comments on our YouTube channel to see what people are thinking. And we'll work with our editor to get the reel, and we'll insert it here at the end of our interview so that after we're done here, it will stream right into the reel so people can get a glimpse of Ticketyboo.
What I didn't expect is I was the first name he forgot. After, you know, the big story and how much my name meant to him, and he referred to me as the girl. When I started this journey, I thought that I'd just do a little memorial for my dad, have the art exhibition. I thought that I was making this for Dad. And then everything happened, all at once. I thought I was going to take one test, and now I've been researching so many, and I've decided to take a heap of tests, and they're really, really heavy. So to kind of publicly go and be tested and find out if I've got some kind of cognitive decline.
You're doing really well.
But I'm the same age as my dad when I think he started to lose his mind. What am I doing? What the hell am I doing to myself? It's just an experiment that I feel I have to do. And it's making me help me forgive myself for not being as available to my dad as I think I should have been.
I think most of us know someone who has dementia.
I suppose I thought there was no hope for the future because that's what everybody told me.
This issue of ageing and where we could eventually end up.
I don't want my dad's experience of a nursing home.
Once you go in there, you deteriorate quickly. It's like the outside world ceases to exist. It's like you cease to become a person. It's a great dirty shame.
Am I usual in your experience?
Typical. Very typical.
Am I?
Yes.
I can look back now and say, you know, hey, things have been great.
I didn't know that I wouldn't see him again. When you get stuck, it's everything in your life starts to crumble and crack, and you don't know it until it's too late. Don't do what I did back then, but certainly try all the things that I've been learning now. I'm going to end up in a place at some point, and I want to make a difference now and try and change things for people that need it now, so that selfishly too that I'll have something better for me later on.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.